when you go watch your favorite bands live at a stadium, at an amphitheater, or even a small venue. You think about the group of people that you're standing with, and they're strangers, and they might have different views, whether they be political or what have you, right? It doesn't matter. The views could be different, but there's no tension there, right? There's no tension. There's no drama, no politics, and no anger. Everybody is in the moment. Everybody's happy to be there. So I think if we just understood who we really were when it came to music, I think that if that extended outward and we could take that with us, even if a little bit of it, that's what we should remember. When you talk about, attaching something to a memory or a time in your life. Hello, and welcome to the most mediocre podcast on the planet. I'm Chris, and this is Average Joe. Let's talk about it. Welcome to a place where you can feel comfortable having those uncomfortable conversations and say the things out loud that we normally don't talk about. So sit back, get comfortable, and let's talk about it. Everybody, welcome back to Average Joe. Let's talk about it. Today is a little different. And for the first time, I'm inaugurating myself into the mix. You're not just going to hear my voice. You're going to be blessed with my visual presence. And it's going to be a struggle at first for me to understand, to continue to look at the camera and get close enough to the mic. And the hardest part is not looking at myself and looking at the camera, which, by the way, mine looks like Wall-E. So I shouldn't be having too much trouble. I kind of like that character. Good job, Disney or Pixar, whatever. Same thing, right? I say today's different, not just because I'm here with you visually and doing a video accompanying the audio for the first time in my newly set up podcast area in my shop, in my garage, but also because I'm trying to get away from doing I'm looking down at the screen. I'm trying to get away from doing what I have been doing the last few episodes, which is kind of drawing from, I don't know, more serious content, I guess. I'm kind of a funny guy by nature, but I do have these internal things going on that I like to get out. And I think it's something that we all do. And, if it's relatable, then I'm happy that you're showing up, and I hope that you continue to show up. So without further ado, let's just get right into it. So I want to talk about music. Music is a huge passion of mine. And it's not because I'm a musician. It's not because I even picked up an instrument and played it, a long time ago, maybe in junior high, elementary school. I don't know, one of those things. I was in band, but I always wanted to play the guitar, and I just couldn't. I'm not that inclined. I don't know what to do with my hands. So I am more of a connoisseur, and I kind of dive deep into music and how it makes people feel, and mostly just myself on a personal level as an individual living in a world where there is a lot going on and there is a lot of divisiveness. I think music is one of those things that allows us to be different with each other. And so I want to get into that. So let's talk about, and let me fix this little guy. Wally's pissing me off because he continually wants to show something above my head, and I ain't down with that, right? I'm trying to be professional here. All right, so music. Music is a time portal. Music is a conveyance to a place where emotion has attached itself and has allowed you to go back there from time to time within a couple notes, the intro to a song, right? So music is a medium unrivaled, I feel, by any other artistic creation. And, you can challenge me on that, and that's fine. That's my personal opinion. but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that agree with me. I put a lot of myself into music. And when I say that, I mean, I kind of rationalize things based on listening to music and, growing up with it and having it help me in a certain way as it's helped others. And even musicians and artists across the board who are putting out music today and have been putting out music for years and generations will say the same thing, that we have all been influenced in some sort of way. So I think it's one of those things that's universal and that is never going to go away. So anyway, I wanted to get into talking about it being a vehicle to get you to the past, a sort of portal that you can jump right into just by pressing play. So starting with the science of music, right? I mean, just thinking about it sometimes, there are certain songs that can really get me going emotionally on a psychological level. I think we all have a little bit of that in us. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, what song takes you back to your best memory? And what memory was that? And I'm sure there's quite a few. I know for me, there is. I listen to a lot of music on shuffle. And these days with on demand streaming, and you can listen to whatever you want to, you don't have to dig through an album. You don't have to dig through your CD case or your cassette case or what have you to find what you're looking for because of how you're feeling in that moment. The good thing is you can always ask Siri. So psychology and biology, who would think that those two things you could incorporate into music? But I'm sure you could read it somewhere. I'm just kind of, when I talk about things, like I said in past episodes, I kind of just go off of my personal insight, my individual opinion, and some experience that's been lent to me throughout the years to kind of understand what certain things mean to me. And in this case, music has a biological and a psychological response that can be retrieved from you just by listening to a song. So whether it be a physical or emotional response, right? You get crying from a song. And don't get me wrong, I don't think we're talking about crying from a song because it's that great to where it just instills this emotion into you to where you're overwhelmed with the need to cry it out. I think it probably has a little something to do with something in your memory banks, right? Something that's connected to a memory that was an emotional state that you were in at the time, whether it be you were sad or depressed. I don't think I've ever cried tears of joy from listening to a song, but who knows? So aside from that, think back to a song that you have listened to. It gets your hair standing on end on your arms, gets you goosebumps or goose pimples for those of you in the South. I don't know what saying comes from where, but they mean the same thing. And you get what I'm talking about. If you haven't had a physical response like that, then how can you say you're a music lover? Maybe, I don't know. I'm curious, right? So in the comments, leave something in there and let me know. Have you never felt a physical response from a specific song that you've listened to in your life? Because if you're out there, I'm trying to diagnose what's wrong with you. But no joke. I mean, everybody's different, and I'm not judging, but I just can't fathom a world where somebody's not out there listening to a song and it doesn't get them to a place, physically or emotionally, right? And I think those are the two things that come to mind, right? Crying makes you smile because you're thinking back to a time where maybe life was better or different, or maybe you were just ridiculous at that time because you were younger and stupid. I don't know, but it still garners some kind of response, right? And so what kind of recall do you have when you're listening to these particular songs that we're talking about? I know for me, I can think back to a time in my life with quite a few songs, and I'm instantly transported there after a few notes, and I'm there. I mean, and when I say I'm there, I'm talking about, I'm reliving the feeling that I had during that time. So, a time, a feeling, whether you were with friends or you were by yourself, alone in your room in the dark, staring at the ceiling. That's very specific. But if you haven't been there, once again, why? I think we do a lot of our best thinking and reflecting during times when we are alone and we're listening to music and being transported to those places in our lives that we had long forgot existed, but those times never go away. So you always remember where you were. And, in some cases, and I guess it depends on who you are. I mean, for me, I think I can get to a level where I can listen to a specific song and almost tell you what the weather was that day, where it kind of imprinted on me. Because you can't say, there's a point in time that it takes you back to. I mean, you're listening to this music throughout your life, but I think there's a point in time in your life where that song was making a difference to you and when it was really impacting who you were. And then it left some kind of resonance on you that you became attached to. So when I say that, hey, there's a time and a location and a feeling that you get from a particular song, that's what I'm referring to. So yeah, strange, right? The weather. I got my notebook here because I got to keep all my thoughts in one place. I tend to ramble, and see, I'm doing it now. So God bless you for staying with me. Okay, so we're going to move on and we're going to talk about the feel of music. Why do you gravitate towards a certain type of music? Why do you listen to a specific song, an artist, or you go straight to an album? Going back to what I said, when you're listening on demand and you're listening to iTunes or Spotify or whatever your jam is as far as streaming services go, and I think back, I'm a playlist guy. I put some playlists together and I'll build on those playlists based on, emotional memory from exactly what we're talking about today. But I think that it's a lot easier to forget that we actually had to dig to get to something because what we were feeling, it drives us. Music does, right? So if you're in an emotional state and you're feeling happy, I mean, there's got to be a specific album or a specific song or an artist that you kind of want to go to. So you drive to that point. That's your destination for that day, or if you're angry or, whatever the case may be. So that being said, does it define or determine your mood? So you go the other direction, right? So you're like, hey, I'm going to go listen to this song because I'm feeling in a sort of way. But if you flip that around on its axis and you say, this song makes me feel a certain way, then, what song would that be? Right. And these are all questions that I'm curious about. So, I mean, if this is kind of relatable and it's kind of resonating with you, feel free to leave a comment and just say, hey, this is the type of song I love to listen to when I'm feeling this way. And just for that connection, right? Because there's a lot of different places we can go with music. And it really depends on what you're into. I've got a really diverse palette. So, I mean, I can listen to anything from rap and hip hop to country music to heavy metal and all those things. I grew up, 70s, all the 80s, 90s, uh, turn of the century, 2010 and on up, EDM and house music and all those things. And I enjoy quite a bit of it. I think if I had to say that there was one specific genre that I didn't really care for as much as the rest, is probably pop. I'm sure everybody's got a little different something. So, sadness, are you feeling sad? Is it music that makes you feel that way, or do you gravitate towards a certain music because you are feeling that way? The same goes if, are you feeling aggro? Are you driving? Are you road raging? Are you at the gym? Are you trying to get motivated? There's music for every occasion. Melancholy, where you just kind of don't care about the world around you. And then festive, of course, right? What's a good party without great music, right? So I'm always trying to be the best DJ when it comes to having parties and hoping people love the music that I'm trying to put out there for them to listen to. But of course, we've all got different tastes and you can't please everyone, but there's got to be something playing. You can't be partying and having a good time and enjoying the comfort of wherever you're at and your friends and not be listening to some music in the background to keep that party going. And then moving on from that, music is a destination to the past, like I said, and where do you go? Where do you go when you hear it? And more importantly, where do you want to go? It's the same thing of a matter of, does it define or determine your mood? And it's the same thing with the destination that you want to get to by listening. Are you trying to get back to a moment in time where things were easier, or does it just happen organically and you can pick and choose which memory you want to be in that moment with that song that you're listening to? Because like I said, it doesn't have to be one single solitary moment in time for a specific song. Because I'm sure there's a lot out there and you could probably meld them all together in a tight little playlist of your life. But I think that we definitely have a destination that we want to go to. So ask yourself that question. Where is it that I'm wanting to go by listening to this right now? Or is it just background noise? Because I think we get to a point where, we want to listen to music to escape. We want to muffle the outside world and just be one with our thoughts and get away from all of that we've got to deal with on the day to day, right? So it could be an escape. It relates to a moment. Of course, we can say that over and over again. What memory has the song attached itself to in your eyes? And are those memories good? Are they positive? Are they negative? Does it put you in a place where, although you wouldn't want to go back there, but it's one of those things where you had growth in those moments and you see that as you have evolved and gotten older, and you decide in your mind that, hey, this song it used to make me feel a certain way, but I know that if it transports me back to a time in my life that was tough, then I have to understand that where I'm at now, I'm okay with it. And that's why I listen to it. And there's definitely strength in that. And here's the other thing, right? And this will be a good segue into the next piece, which is, does it remind you of someone? I think we've all got songs out there that remind us of another human being in our lives, whether it be family or somebody we've crossed paths with, somebody that we've spent some time with, and somebody that we've loved, or somebody that we've lost. So all of those things come into play when we talk about music and the connection, the human connection, because just like you can attach it to a memory, you can also attach music to people. And I know that we've all got someone in our lives, and maybe more than one, where you can listen to some music, and it doesn't even have to be a song. It can be a kind of music, and know maybe that person loved that kind of music, and now you love it because of the fact that they liked it so much, and it reminds you of them, especially if you lost a loved one, that music really drove your relationship with them, or it reminds you of them in happier times. So stay with that. That's pretty powerful stuff. I think that music is a great source of consolement when it comes to listening and having that attached to a person that made such an impact in your life. And also, do you listen to stay connected to someone else? And that kind of goes in line with the idea that, if you do lose somebody, whether it be in this life because they passed away or because they moved on or whatever the case may be, we've got that in our minds and in our hearts that kind of stays with us. And that's kind of sort of the psychology of it. So moving into the human connection point. It's the ability to live and love with thousands of people with different views, with different worldviews, with different upbringings, different cultures, different backgrounds, different ideals, but they all have similar tastes. And you know where that is? That's right. It's when you go watch your favorite bands live at a stadium, at an amphitheater, or even a small venue. You think about the group of people that you're standing with, and they're strangers, and they might have different views, but there's no tension there, right? There's no tension. There's no drama, no politics, and no anger. Everybody is in the moment. Everybody's happy to be there. And I think there's nothing better than just understanding that. And I don't think people take the time when they're out there and they're amongst all those folks that are like-minded, listening to some great music, having a fantastic time with the absence of all those things that I mentioned. But then we walk away from that, and then we're back to being the people that we were. So I think if we just understood who we really were when it came to music, I think that if that extended outward and we could take that with us, even if a little bit of it, that's what we should remember. When you talk about, attaching something to a memory or a time in your life, remember the time when you've been out and you've been listening to music, whether it be at a large venue or a small one. Think about all the people that you were there with and think about how different they probably are from you, but you all just got along. I think really there's only music that can do that. Only music. So when you think about music and telling tales, they are obviously they're stories, right? Every music has a message or a story. Country music, I chuckle because what is this saying? If you spin a country record backwards, you get your girlfriend back, your house back, your dog is alive, and all those things, right? But it's storytelling, and only because you have a different understanding. I think when you grow up, your understanding of the music you were listening to at one time evolved, and I never really looked at myself through that lens until I did get older, and I realized, well, what was I listening to when I was that age? And you hear those songs again, and you're like, oh my goodness, I guess I had some angst. But you think about the discography of your life, right? Music through the years. So you start with, at a young age, your first introduction of music. What was it? Who was it? Who introduced you to it? And how long has it stuck with you? And how much has it influenced your music preference through the years? Well, I can tell you personally, for me, right? Childhood, right? So your first introduction to music is usually from parents, and from there it evolves, right? So I'll just let you in on a little personal experience of my own. So when I was a kid, I remember my first introduction to music. I remember vividly too, and I remember where I was. I was in my mom's car. I'm not sure even what kind of car it was. I do remember it was dark. And I remember because I remember the lights of the dash and the radio and all that. And I think it was a little two-seater. It might have been even a 280Z. But we'll just go with that. And Led Zeppelin came on, and we lived in Southern California. So LA, KLOS was the radio station, and they played amazing music. And they were doing like hits of the 70s. But I mean, I was, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 years old. So it wasn't too far from the 70s that I was hearing this anyway. But in any case, it was Led Zeppelin, and I believe it was Stairway to Heaven. And from there, it just kind of took off. I was always kind of a little bit of a rocker when it come to music. Not to say that the music I listen to now is any different. I still listen to Led Zeppelin to this day. But that was the beginning. And then you get a little older, right? And you kind of come into your own. I was given my first 4 albums. They were cassettes. I had a hi-fi stereo with detachable speakers and a turntable, dual cassette, and a microphone that I would sing with. And I mean, I was pretty good. No, I wasn't, but I enjoyed it. And I can only, oh, now I remember. I was having this conversation earlier. Now I remember what the fourth one was. So I got 4 cassettes for my birthday, along with that stereo. And it was Bruce Springsteen, Born in the USA, Cyndi Lauper, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. I had the Jackson 5. I really wanted Michael Jackson, but I was good with the Jackson 5. I don't remember the album's name. And Duran Duran Arena. So just by that kind of tells you how my preference or my diverse palette came to be. Because I mean, just those 4 albums alone were different from one another, but it was one of those top 100 things, right? All big albums at the time. And then you get older, you start getting more influence from external sources other than your family. So obviously, as a teenager, growing up, late 80s, early 90s, I had a lot of teenage angst. And if you heard some of my podcasts prior to this one, you know where that come from. But there's a ton of great music that came out when I was a teenager, like Alice in Chains, and they had like 2 or 3 great albums that I can remember. Metallica, Nirvana, Soundgarden, God, you name it. I mean, I could go on forever and ever. That's the playlist of my teenage years, my formidable years. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Blood Sugar Sex Magic. I mean, what an amazing album. And I can still to this day listen to that thing front to back. And boy, is there a lot of memories attached to that one. But in any case, teenage years, I think, are where the groundwork is laid for really kind of setting the tone for most of the rest of your life as far as music goes and what you're pulling from, right? And then you become a young adult and you start realizing more and more as you start listening to the lyrics, because I can tell you, I listened to music in the beginning for the music. I enjoyed the music. I enjoyed the melodies. I enjoyed, the guitar, the drums, the culmination of all the instruments together. And I really didn't pay much attention to the lyrics and to the message. And what's crazy is you could sing all day long, right along with, any of those bands that I mentioned, including like Rage Against the Machine. Fuck you, I won't do what you tell me. And none of it just makes sense. It's just a cool way to jump around and be stupid and, curse and whatnot. But, you know, later in life, as you get older, your understanding of that music evolves. And now you're starting to hear things that you didn't hear before. So now it becomes, hey, the music's great and the message is equally good. So, there's that. And then the influence, how long does that influence continue? And I can tell you, at 50 years old, I think it has gone full circle, right? So I started getting into EDM, house music, techno, and all that other kind of stuff when my kids were younger and they were coming up in their teenage years, and they had great music preferences. So I got a lot of my playlists beyond what I had already compiled from them. But I think there becomes a certain point in time in your life where you stop kind of searching. I think you feel comfortable with the amount of music that you've come to know and love, and there's no reason to go out and get more. So that being said, whether you're influenced or not, it doesn't really matter. Your preferences are coming from somewhere. And if it's an individual thing and you come up with it on your own because you're just thinking to yourself, that makes sense to me. I can relate to that. And there's thousands, millions of people out there that's what they do. They find relatable music to their lives that tells a story of who they are, where they're from, where they are, and where they're going. And they hang on to that. So to wrap it up, music is timeless. It transcends generations. And it's probably the most positive influence as far as art creation goes that I can think of. Now, that's my personal opinion, but I don't think I would look at like a Monet hanging on the wall and get the same kind of emotional response that you can get from some really good music. So, for all you artsy fartsy people out there that like paintings on walls and great photography and that instills some kind of emotional response to you, but hey, more power to you. I'm a music guy. I will forever be a music guy. And I often think to myself, what would my theme song be if I could choose one? Well, I haven't thought long enough about it. I'm only halfway through life, so I can't really say for certain. Maybe I'll come back or I'll throw it in the comments, but how about you throw it in the comments first and I'll reply? So tell me, what would your theme song be? So, two different types, right? What would your theme song be that defined you at a young age, whether it be your teenage years or early adult? And how about now? What would your theme song be right now? So, you think about music. Maybe you think about it a different way. Maybe you've always thought this way about music. But I'm glad you could join me on the journey to at least find out how I think about music. And if you feel the same way, leave it in the comments. Let me know what it is that your theme song is. If you want to tell me what kind of music influenced you in your life or what you think your teenage playlist would be, hey man, I'm an open book. If you want to be too, that's up to you. But until we meet next time, you stay safe out there and let's try to love one another a little bit better than we have. God bless. Hey, thanks for showing up today. And for any of us that are out there carrying more than we like to say out loud, let's keep the conversation going on the next episode.